Hey, it's Kevin. Thank you so much for coming by for the No BS social media chat. You know, social media has taken a drastic turn here in the last year or two, and that's thanks to politicians getting involved in social media. President Trump has definitely changed the mood, the tone, the feel of social media for many people. And the one thing I've noticed is now, more than ever, it's okay to have extreme viewpoints and to express them on social media. Now, the question I'm always going to ask, is it worth it? It's one thing if you're working in the world of politics to have extreme views. But it's funny, a couple of weeks ago, watching the CMA Awards on TV, and of course because I work with so many music business clients, with so many people both in the radio side of the business, with so many people in the music business side of the business, and so many artists, it's amazing to see people, well, talking trash, talking good, talking bad, talking about how country is this, country is that. It's truly amazing to me that they're putting out these extreme viewpoints. A couple of days ago, and we're now talking almost a week and a half past the CMA Awards, I saw somebody post a story about the CMAs and had a picture of Tim McGraw, and he was in a leather cowboy hat. It was in his fancy cowboy hat, his dress-up, his runway model cowboy hat. And there were people complaining that that's not a cowboy, no man wears a leather cowboy hat. And I thought to myself, really? You know what? He's not a cowboy. In fact, it's funny, everybody always equates cowboy hats with country music, boots with country music. And that's really Western music. You know, as I joke with people, I spent a few years as a child, 4 years as a young child, in Wyoming. And around there, you wear boots, you wear cowboy hats. It was just kind of the native dress, if you will. I rode horses back when I was a small kid. But the minute I left Wyoming, I never really had a desire or a need or a feel that I had to wear a cowboy hat because I wasn't a cowboy. Now, of course, there was that horrible era in the 1990s when everybody was line dancing and we all wore cowboy hats to the country bars. And I had to do it because I was working in country radio at the time. So I had my one cowboy hat and I had my one pair of cowboy boots, and I wore them. And the minute I left that radio station and the urban cowboy, not even the urban cowboy, the line dance era of country music went away, they went right in the trash because I'm not a cowboy. But for whatever reason, there are country music artists who've always worn cowboy hats because going back to the Western days of the music format, that's where it came from. But if that's not you, don't worry about it. But to see people complain and well, get all up in arms about a guy wearing a leather cowboy hat. I just went, seriously? You know what, he probably shouldn't have worn a hat at all. But then you would have found something else to complain. Because it wasn't about the leather cowboy hat. It was about people wanting to complain about the current state of country music. They don't like the trend. They don't like where it's going. I've always laughed. And again, this is almost country music centric. But I remember when I first started getting involved in country music radio back in the late 1970s, early 1980s, around the urban cowboy era, I would get phone calls on the radio station telling me we shouldn't play the group Alabama because they weren't country. They were rock and roll. Well, lo and behold, you fast forward 30 years later, and Alabama is in the Country Music Hall of Fame, is noted as the most important group in the history of country music, and changed the face of country. Is that right? Is that wrong? Times change, morals change, views change, how we look at the world changes, but there's sometimes people just want to complain. People want to be heard. That's the one thing about the internet. That's the one thing about social media. It's given people a voice. And we've talked about this many times before. Everybody just wants a voice. They just want to feel that they're being heard. What we've seen now is almost the culmination of that, where now all viewpoints are extreme. I tend to want to shy away from those things, unless, again, that's your niche, if that's how you're promoting yourself. I've talked about the artist I worked with years ago who worked in the coal mining industry, who was very pro-coal mining and would let everybody he knew and would let anybody he came in contact with know that he was pro-coal mining and that this is the way we should be doing things. He was very political and actually lost some radio airplay and got some people who didn't want to get involved with him because they didn't like his extreme views. And he said, you know what, I'm okay with that. I am who I am. I want to stay true to who I am. And if they don't want to deal with me because of that, I'm all for that. You know what, I come to respect that. I appreciate that. But at the same time, is it worth it for you? Especially if you're a small business, especially if you're just trying to get a toehold in the social media world. I'll be honest with you. I've got a lot of views. I don't know if they're extreme anymore. Maybe when I was younger, my views were extreme, not so much anymore. But it's not really worth sharing them, whether it's on politics, whether it's on sex. I actually had this discussion a while back in one of these episodes where I was just talking about the topics you don't touch on. Now, fast forward a couple years later, it's almost like it's not only do you not touch on those subjects, but if you do touch on them, how extreme do you really want to be? It's a strange time we're living in. Social media is starting to mature. Social media is a teenager, and it's going through its ugly, awkward teenage years. And our president isn't helping that right now. But again, if you feel strongly about being extreme in your viewpoints, go right ahead. Be prepared for the fallout. It may work for you now, it may work for a while, or it may not work at all. But ask yourself, At the end of the day, isn't it better to be social, to be interactive, to be engaging, to be fun, uplifting, positive, to keep people, well, wanting to be a part of your social media world? Something to think about. That's the side I'm going to fall on every time. Back next week, another No BS social media chat. NoBSSocial.com, the website for all these videos. You can find them on Facebook, find them on YouTube too. As I always say, come on back next week. Wherever you found them this week, we'll be here again next week. You want my email, my phone number? Coming up here at the end of the video, you can write them down real quick. Get a hold of me if you'd like to talk more about social media, talk about any subject about social media, whether it's the subject of this video or not. Come on back next week. We'll see you. Thanks so much.